Right, good morning, all of you. Students, in earlier session until where we had discussed, students?
The absorption in large intestine molecule.
Yes. The process of digestion completed.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So in earlier session we had discussed regarding about different types of the food materials. The food materials participates different types of the enzymatic reactions, undergoes different types of enzymatic reactions, and finally the end products are formed. End products are going to be absorbed from the cavity of the intestine to blood or liver. So before going the absorption process, what are the calorific values of the food materials? We'll discuss. So what are the calorific values? So what is the purpose of food? Why we are taking food, students?
For energy.
The energy.
For energy.
So food materials, energy resources. So whenever after the digestion of the food, end products are formed. End products are going to be absorbed from the intestine cavity to up to the region of the blood, and it reaches to the cells, and finally there is energy is released. So how much energy is released from different types of the food material? So what are the major food material components, students? How many these are?
Carbohydrates,
Carbohydrates and proteins.
and proteins.
Right. So here calorific value. Calorific value
The word is blood,
of
sir.
So yes, your body is blur.
what blood?
Now
Now
clear,
it's
sir.
clear.
Right.
Now it
Okay.
is sir.
Right, student. Okay. So calorific values of food materials. So majorly three different types of calorific values: carbohydrates and proteins and fats. These three are the major food materials. And carbohydrate, proteins, and fats. So calorific values of the food materials without means outside of the body they are releases more energy. Whenever the food materials enters inside of the body, they releases energy is going to be reduces. Means that after the physiological functions, whatever the energy is releases, that is slightly reduced. And outside the body, the food materials are able to release little bit more energy. So outside the body means where in warm calorimeter. In warm calorimeter, the energy is released by the food materials. That is called gross energy. Gross energy. In warm calorimeter, whatever the energy released by the food materials, that is called gross energy. So in warm calorimeter means that is outside of the body. That point you need to be remembered. And next one, in inside of the body, that is physiological calorific value. Physiological calorific value of the food materials. So this is called net energy. Net energy. So physiological calorific value means what, students? Inside the body or outside the body, students?
Inside the body.
By the physiological functions inside the body, different types of the energy releases. So carbohydrates. So energy always. What are the measurements for energy, students? What are the unit for energy? Calories and kilocalories. Okay, students. So always energy determined by the kilocalories only. So carbohydrates in warm calorimeter, the carbohydrate releases 4.1 kilocalories, and proteins releases 5.6 0.65 kilocalories and fat releases 9.45 kilocalories per gram. These are all per gram. Per gram of carbohydrate, 4.1 kilocalorie. Per gram protein releases 5.65 kilocalorie. And per gram fat releases 9.45 kilocalories. Okay, students? Right. And next one. Whenever these are all releases in the region of the bomb calorimeter outside of the body, that is gross energy. Whenever this food material enters inside the body, the energy is slightly reduced. The production of energy is slightly reduces. That is by the 1 gram of carbohydrate releases 4 kilocalories, and the proteins also releases 4 kilocalories, and fats releases 9 kilocalories. So this 4, 4 and 9, this is a net calorific value. So that is net energy released inside of the body by the physiological functions. Until this clear, students, right? So these values are important, just you need to remember. And along with this food material, we are ingesting different types of the roughage. What is meant by roughage? Fiber material,
Fiber.
and vitamins and minerals. Roughage, vitamins and minerals and water. So very
Excuse me,
minute
sir.
energy. Very fine.
So what's that bomb calorie meter? What you have written? I didn't get it, sir.
Questions last 10 minutes. Okay.
No, sir, it's not a question, sir. Sir, what's that written on the board? The heading of that, sir.
It is not visible.
No, sir. Here I can't see it properly. What you've written? BOM. Can
Bomb
you spell it, sir?
bomb calorimeter. Bomb calorimeter is the apparatus.
Sir, I have written
The
bomb kilometers.
bomb calorimeter.
Sir, I have written bomb kilometer.
Calorimeter. Bomb calorimeter.
That's why I was confused, sir.
Okay, okay, right, fine. Bomb calorimeter. Bomb calorimeter. So it is one of the apparatus. For 1 gram of food material, how much energy is released? So that food material are going to be combust. The food material are going to be combust in the bomb calorimeter. By that, how much energy is released? Okay, that should be indicated by these values. In bomb calorimeter, so this is called gross energy. This is called gross energy. Yes, students? Why it is called gross energy? Because of that is outside of the body. So how much actual energy which is released from the food material? From the carbohydrates, 4.1 kilocalories. From the proteins, 5.65 kilocalories. And from the fats, 9.45 kilocalories. Okay, students? And that is called gross energy. And next one, physiological or there is net energy. Calorific values are carbohydrates 4 kilocalories and proteins 4 kilocalories, and finally fats are 9 kilocalories. So slightly energy reduces. And along with that, for example, in one objective question, the person is consuming 5 grams of carbohydrate. Write the question, students. The person consuming 5 grams of carbohydrates and 4 grams of proteins, 4 grams of proteins, and 10 grams of fats, 10 grams of fats, and 20 grams of roughage, 20 grams of roughage, 20 grams of the roughage. Okay, so how much net energy releases from the food material? How much net energy releases from the food material?
146 kilocalories.
146.
Yes, sir.
So how many carbohydrates, students?
5 grams.
5 into 4 carbohydrates. Proteins how much?
4 grams.
4 grams. 4 into 4, that is 20 kilocalories, and 4 into 4, 16 kilocalories. How much fats, students? Am I?
Sir, 10 grams.
10. 10 into 9.
9.
90 kilocalories. So total how much?
So this 126.
126, sir.
126 kilocalories only. Are you understanding or not? So why fiber not considered here? Fiber is? Yes, students?
Sir, because it does not give any energy.
Releasing energy, and most of the fiber is not going to be absorbed. It is released through the fecal material. And always whenever in the question fiber mentioned means, that is, you can count it as 0 calories. Water, 0 calories. Clear, students? And some of the minute minerals and the vitamins, those are all very minute, it not considered. So majorly these three materials are going to be considered: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Clear, students, until this? Yes?
Clear?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Right, fine. Oh. Tanisha, clear? Bomb calorimeter now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, right. So this is regarding about different types of the calorific values of the food, right? And next one. So in earlier session we discussed regarding about the complete process of digestion in the region of small intestine, in the cavity of the small intestine. So after process of the digestion, the process of absorption takes place from the cavity of small intestine to where, students? From the cavity of small intestine to into the region of villi. So in the villi, what are there? What is the structure of villi?
Lymph vessels and blood vessels.
Lacteals also presented, lymph vessel, and what are presented?
Blood capillaries.
Students. And one more point you need to be remember: the end products of the food are absorbs. Major process of the absorption takes place in the region of small intestine, and in small intestine where? In the region of the jejunum. Why in the region of jejunum only majorly absorption takes place? Because of the presence of more number of villi. Compare duodenum and ileum. In the jejunum, there is more number of villi are present. Okay, students, right? So, process of absorption. Process of absorption. So only in the small intestine the absorption processes takes place, or any other parts of the gut also absorption takes place? Yes. In other parts of the gut also absorption takes place, but maximum end products of the digestion takes place in the region of small intestine. Okay, students, maximum absorption in small intestine, and some of the percentage of absorption takes place in the region of other parts of the gut also. So in the region of mouth means buccal cavity. In the region of mouth buccal cavity, what type of absorption takes place? In the region of both mouth and buccal cavity, there is in the mouth epithelium, the mouth mucosal epithelium, and beneath the tongue,
Sir, boiled is blood.
the process of absorption takes place. Both not visible, students?
So now it's clear.
Clear, sir.
Clear, okay, right. Right. So here what happens? In the region of mouth, buccal cavity also, there is the process of absorption takes place. In the mouth, mucosal epithelium, and beneath the tongue, the process of absorption takes place. So what are going to be absorbed here? And some drugs are going to be absorbed in the region of mouth or buccal cavity. So some emergency drugs are presented. So in the patient critical conditions, the ducts are made up of with complex structures. The ducts enters into the region of the stomach and intestine after the process of digestion. The patient will die. Okay, students. Before going that, the drugs are made up of with a very simple structures, chemical compounds, and that type of the drugs are going to be absorbed in the region of buccal cavity only. Okay, students. So in the buccal cavity or mouth, that is by the mucosal epithelium and beneath the tongue, some of the drugs are going to be absorbed in the region of mouth or buccal cavity. And next one in the pharynx and esophagus, no process of absorption. Absorption not occurs, not takes place. And next in the region of stomach. Next part of the gut, in the stomach also the process of absorption takes place of some material. That is those are water absorption takes place in the stomach, and some of the drugs absorption takes place in the stomach, and some of the simple sugars also absorption takes place in the region of stomach, and alcohol absorption also takes place in the region of stomach. So in the stomach, which materials are going to be absorbed? Water and some of the drugs, and there is simple sugars are going to be absorbed in the region of stomach, and alcohol also absorbs in the region of the stomach. It is going to be absorbed. Until this clear, students? Yes. So in the portion of stomach also there is absorption takes place. And next one, the stomach leads into the students small intestine. So we already discussed in the small intestine.
Sir, video structure.
Sir, video is not available.
Video is
Sir,
stuck.
video is stuck, sir. Sir, video is stuck, sir.
Isn't available, sir.
Audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, students. Right. So end products of the food in the region of the small intestine are going to be absorbed. So end products of carbohydrates are what, students?
Glucose.
Glucoses. That is monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are going to be
Sir,
absorbed.
video is not available, sir.
And next one, end products of the proteins. amino acids. Amino acids are going to be absorbed in the region of small intestine. So end products of the fats,
Glycerol and fatty acids.
fatty acids and glycerols are going to be absorbed in the region of small intestine. And along with that, there is end products of the nucleic acid, students.
Pentose sugars and nitrogen bases.
Sugars, there is pentose sugars and nitrogen bases. Those are also going to be absorbed in the region of small intestine. All the end products are maximum absorption takes place in the region of small intestine. Where to where? That is important. That is by the cavity of the small intestine to cavity of small intestine to continue to write down cavity or lumen of intestine to blood and in the region of lymph. Until this clear, students? Yes. And in the region of large intestine also some of the process of absorption takes place. In the region of large intestine also some of the process of absorption takes place. The large intestine, which material mostly absorbed? In earlier class we discussed
Water.
Very good. So water majorly absorbed in the region of large intestine for the formation of fecal material. And next one, there is some of the minerals. Some minerals are going to be absorbed in the region of large intestine. And along with that, some of the vitamins are also absorbed in the region of the large intestine. And some drugs also absorbs in the region of large intestine. So which materials are going to be absorbed in the large intestine? Water also absorbs and minerals also absorbs, and some of the vitamins and some of the minerals also absorbs in the large intestine. Along with that, some of the drugs also going to be absorbed in the region of large intestine. Okay, students, so you need to remember along with the small intestine, in other parts of the gut also, some of the process of digestion takes place. Some of the process of absorption takes place. Okay, students. So first one, in the mouth buccal cavity, by the help of mouth mucosal epithelium, and beneath the tongue, there is some of the drugs are going to be absorbed. And in the region of stomach, water and some drugs and some simple sugars and alcohol is going to be absorbed in the region of stomach. In the small intestine, the major process of absorption takes place in the region of small intestine only. All the end products of the food, what are they? Monosaccharides, and amino acids, fatty acids, and glycerol, sugars, nitrogen sugars, and the nitrogen bases and pentose sugars are going to be absorbed in the region of simple small intestine only. And next one, where to where the process of absorption takes place, that point important. From the lumen of a small intestine to the end products are enters into either blood or lymph. Okay, students. Next one, large intestine also some of the molecules are going to be absorbed. That is water, minerals, and some vitamins and some of the drugs are going to be absorbed in the region of large intestine. Until this clear, students? Yes.
Clear.
Okay, now which type of the material, by which process the different material is going to be absorbed in the intestine, from cavity to blood and from cavities to lymph. So how absorption processes takes place. So the process of absorption, how it is takes place. So how many types of absorptions are happening? So before going to different types of the materials, first you need to know how many types of absorption process are there. So by that, how the process of absorption takes place, we will discuss. So first one, absorption. Absorption in small intestine, we are discussing now. Absorption. So absorption process majorly divided into two different types. That is passive transport, and second one is active
Active transport.
transport. Active transport. The absorption is majorly divided into two different types, active transport and passive transport. And one more important you need to remember, active transport and passive transport both are also related to absorption of amino acids, absorption of different types of monosaccharides only. Absorption of fats process is completely different. That we will discuss later. Okay, students? So this absorption for what type? This absorption for only monosaccharides, and amino acids. The glucoses, different types of the glucoses and amino acids. Absorption is similar. But fat absorption is, the fat molecules absorption is little bit different process that we will discuss later after discussion of this. Okay, students? So majorly absorption is divided into two different types, passive transport and active transport. So in the passive transport, what is the major differences between passive and active transport? Passive transport always occurs from high concentration to the molecule movements from high concentration to low concentration. High to low. Passive transport always occurs from high concentration to low concentration only. And next one, active transport. Active transport occurs from low concentration to high concentration only. So for which transport energy is needed, students here?
Active transport.
Sir, active transport.
Very good.
Active transport.
Energy is needed. For passive transport, no need of energy. No need of energy. But for active transport, energy is needed. Energy is required. Energy required. Energy required from where? Hydrolysis of ATP. Hydrolysis of ATP. ATP hydrolysis. So the process of ATP hydrolysis, energy is released. That energy, by the utilizing of that energy, the molecules movements from low concentration to high concentration takes place. Clear, students? That is active transport. Next is the passive transport. So how the molecule movement takes place? The passive transport, there is three different types are presented in the passive transport. That is called simple diffusion. Simple diffusion. So second one is osmosis. Osmosis. So third one is facilitated transport. So passive transport has three different process, that is simple diffusion and osmosis and facilitated transport. So any type of the transport takes place from one region to another region, that is high to low only. That is the basic formula in passive transport. And energy is not required. These 2 points you should remember. Either simple diffusion or osmosis or facilitated transport. These two are the basic point. Always high to low only. And next one, no need of energy. One more point you need to remember. Either passive or active. In case same concentration is presented in intestinal cavity and blood. So the transportation is not going to be takes place, not occurs. So what requires? Both are also works based on concentration gradient. What is meant by gradient, students? Concentration gradient means what? Concentration gradient means concentration difference, variance. Clear? The variation of the concentration is there. Then only the molecules are going to be absorbed. The transport of molecules takes place. Understood or not? In case same concentration is there, the molecules going to be absorption takes place or not, students?
No, sir.
In case same concentration, there is no.
Isotonic solution.
Yes. So that only what required? Concentration gradient is required. That is the most important you need to remember. Now, by the simple diffusion process, what is meant by simple diffusion? The nutrients are dissolved in the water. Very simple nutrients are dissolved in the water and directly enters into the region of the blood. That process is called simple diffusion process. So nutrients dissolves in water and directly enters into blood. Such type of the process is called simple diffusion process. Clear, students? By the simple diffusion process, what type of the molecules are going to be absorbed into the region of the intestine of the small intestine, into the region of small intestine? So those are some of the glucoses and some of the amino acids. Some of the glucoses and amino acids are going to be diffused by the process of simple diffusion process. Okay, students? And next one. Second one is osmosis. By the osmosis process, through semi-permeable membrane, osmosis takes place from high concentration to low concentration.
Sir, that yellow color glucose, this one I have written, no, sir, it's not visible.
Water is going to be absorbed. Yes, students, this one, glucose and amino acids, not visible.
No, sir.
Okay, now check it, students. Sabai. This color not visible, huh?
Ah, yes, sir, that color.
Okay, glucose and amino acids.
Right, sir.
will be
The
transferred.
color of the chalk.
Okay, right. So here, by the process of osmosis, water is going to be absorbed in the region of from intestinal cavity to where? Intestinal cavity to into the region of blood. That is most important. And next one. Third type of the transport is facilitated transport. The facilitated transport also like simple diffusion process only, but it requires carrier protein is required. Carrier protein is needed. The carrier protein is needed for facilitated transport. So the carrier protein is GLUT5. So what is the carrier protein? What is the name of carrier protein? GLUT5 is needed for transportation of the molecules from cavity to where? Into the region of the blood. So cavity to blood only. These are all from the intestinal cavity to enters into blood only. So GLUT carrier protein is required for the purpose of for the process of facilitated transport. Okay, students. And what type of the material are going to be transported by the facilitated transport? That is some of the glucoses and some of the amino acids. In the glucose, what is majorly? Fructose. In the glucose, fructose is majorly transported, absorbed by the process of facilitated transport. Under this clear, students, these three processes comes under in passive transport only. So for the passive transport, always moves from high concentration to low concentration. That is first formula you need to remember. And second one is no need of energy. So simple diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated transport. These are the three different types. Okay, students? Right. So next one, what? Active transport. In the active transport, what is happening? Active transport, low concentration. The molecule moves from low concentration to high concentration. So what is required, students, here? Yes, students, in active transport, what is required?
Energy.
Energy is required.
Energy.
And along with that, compulsory carrier protein is required. In active transport, carrier protein is essential. Carrier protein is essential in active transport. So what is the carrier protein? The carrier protein in active transport is Na plus. So with the help of Na plus, always it is active transport takes place from low concentration to high concentration. The molecules movement takes place. So what type of the materials are going to be moved? Same, glucoses and amino acids. Glucoses and amino acids. And you should remember very most important point. By the active transport, by the passive transport, the complete absorption is not takes place because of passive transport is very slow process. The passive transport is very slow process. The absorption, the molecules absorption is takes place in by the active transport is very fast. So that only finally by which process the absorption is takes place, by the active transport only all the end products are going to be absorbed. That point you should remember. Okay, students, you can mention here, right? So here by passive process, by passive process, by the passive process, very slow absorption, and by the active process, the absorption is very fast. Fast absorption is takes place. Fast absorption is takes place by the active. Clear? So complete transport is takes place by the passive or active, students. Complete transport is taken place by
Active.
that point you need to remember. So complete transport is takes place by the active transport only. So these transportation for only for meant for what? Meant for both the glucoses and amino acids only. So wherever we not mention fats. Fat absorption is completely different process we will discuss. Until this clear, students, once again I'm revising these points.
Sir, in all it is absorbed to blood, no, sir?
Yes, Avai?
Sir, in all of these processes, it is absorbed to the blood only, no, sir, ultimately?
Into blood only. So glucose and amino acids, this is also into blood only. So all the process from the intestinal cavity to blood only. So whatever we discussed into blood only. So this is also blood. Glucose and amino acids, fructose, these are all also enters into blood only. That point you need to remember. Intestinal cavity to blood. Okay, students?
Yes, sir.
So process of absorption is takes place intestinal cavity to blood or lymph vessels. So majorly whatever the amino acids and the monosaccharides enters into blood and fats are enters into lacteus, that is lymph vessels. So the process of absorption of monosaccharides and amino acids from intestinal cavity to blood majorly divided into two different processes: passive transport and active transport. So in the passive transport, active transport, what is the major difference? Passive transport always molecules moves from high concentration to low concentration. So in the active transport, always molecules moves from low to high. So that only passive no need energy. Passive not requires energy. For active transport, energy is required. Energy supplies by hydrolysis of the process of hydrolysis of ATP molecules. And passive transport, three different process: simple diffusion, osmosis, and facilitated transport. By the simple diffusion means that the small nutrients are going to be dissolved in the water and directly enters into the blood. So what are they? Glucoses and amino acids. And next one, by the process of osmosis. Through the semi-permeable membrane, from high concentration to low concentration, the water is going to be absorbed into the region of blood. So where the high concentration is presented, students, here? High concentration region is what? Yes, students, what is the high concentration region? Very good. Lumen. Lumen of intestine, cavity of intestine is high concentration. Blood is inside the blood, low concentration.
Low concentration.
It moves from cavity to blood. Clear, student? That point you need to remember. Next one, facilitated transport. The facilitated transport requires carrier protein. So GLUT5, that carrier protein which helps for absorption of glucose and amino acids. Glucose, majorly, which glucose are going to be absorbed by the facilitated transport? That is fructose. That is also enters into the region of blood. And next one, regarding about active transport. Active transport means the molecules moves from low concentration to high concentration.
Which is low concentration here, sir?
So which low concentration here in the intestinal cavity? Low concentration, and high concentration in the blood. So that the molecules moves from low to high. And next one, it is always required energy, and carrier proteins also require, that is Na+. So majorly remaining all the glucose and amino acids are going to be absorbed from the region of intestinal cavity to blood. Clear, students? So the major absorption takes place by the process of major molecules movement takes place by the process of active transport only. What is the reason? The reason is active transport is fast and passive transport is very slow. In the name only, active means fast, passive means slow process. Okay, students, by passive process, slow absorption, active, fast absorption. And by the active only, the complete transportation takes place. Complete absorption takes place. Until this clear, students? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Right. Still any doubts you have?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
No doubt.
No. Right. Right, clearly in the notes in the NCERT, explanation not given. Okay, students. So next one, the absorption of fats. So here, what happens, students? The fat absorption takes place from cavity of intestine to intestine to lacteal. Lacteal. Lacteal means what, students? Lymph vessel. Lymph vessel. From there, it enters into blood. The fats are not directly absorbed into blood. First enters into lymph vessel. From there, it is enters into blood. So how the fat absorption takes place? That point is most important. So we already discussed after the emulsification, the fats, after the process of emulsification, fats are formed as mycellus. Mycellus means fatty acids, glycerols, and some of the monoglycerides also presented. Fatty acids also presented, glycerols also presented, and some of the monoglycerides also presented. Those are all incorporated and formed as a mycellus. So mycellus are formed after the emulsification only. Emulsification means in the presence of what, students?
Bile juice.
Bile juice. Which component help for formation of mycellus? Bile salts. That's point important. In the presence of bile salts. Okay. So what happens here? This is lumen. This is lumen, and this one is epithelium. Epithelium of what?
Mucosa.
Mucosal epithelium. Epithelium of mucosa. Villi. Okay, students. So here what happens? From the lumen to mycellus first enters into the region of epithelium. Clear, students? So mycellus reaches to the epithelium, and whenever mycellus reaches to epithelium, the mycellus gets protein coat, lipoprotein coat. Each mycellus gets lipoprotein coats. Then these are called, whenever mycellus gets lipoprotein coats, those are called chylomicrons. So this is lipoprotein coat, and inside mycellus are presented, and the complete structure is called, yes students, the structure is called chylomicrons. Chylomicrons. So where the chylomicrons are formed? In the cavity of intestine or epithelium of the villi?
Epithelium of villi.
Epithelium.
Yes, in the epithelium of villi, the mycellus gets the lipoprotein coat and formed as chylomicrons. So chylomicrons formation takes place in the region of epithelium of villi. Once chylomicrons are formed, these chylomicrons are going to be absorbed into large lymph vessel. That is called, yes students? Large lymph vessel. Yes, that is called lacteal. Lacteal. Lacteal means lymph vessel. Lymph vessel. Lacteal. So chylomicrons are enters into the lacteals. Okay, students, right? The chylomicrons which are enters into lacteal, and lacteal
So what's the use of
these
chylomicrons?
are enters into blood. From the lacteals to the chylomicrons are enters into blood. When the chylomicrons in the lacteal and before entering into the blood, the chylomicrons are divided into end products of the fats. What are the students? In the region of glycerol and fat.
Glycerol fatty acid.
So glycerol plus fatty acids are formed in the blood. That point you need to remember. In the blood, with the help of enzymes, with the help of proteins of blood. That point you need to remember. So here what happens? First mycellus enters into epithelium of the villi. And Mycellus gets the protein coat, the lipoprotein coat, and formed as chylomicrons. And chylomicrons from epithelium to chylomicrons enters into large lymph vessel that is called lacteal. From lacteal to those are releases into the blood. And whenever it is releases into the blood, the chylomicrons are divided in the form of fatty acids and glycerol with the help of, yes, students. So glycerol plus fatty acids in the blood with the help of different types of the proteins which are presented
Proteins
in the
of blood.
blood. So actual fat digestion means where it is takes place. Actual fat digestion means takes place in the region of the blood. Officially, this is unofficial process. But legally, officially, where end products of the fats are formed means that is in the region of blood only. Why? Because in the region of intestinal cavity, fatty acids and glycerol are formed. Again, monosaccharides are formed here. Sorry, monoglycerides are formed. Diglycerides are formed. Again, triglycerides are formed. All are formed. That formation takes place in the region of epithelium. Understood or not? Whenever by the digestion process, digestive enzyme process, fatty acids and glycerols are formed. But again, those are all incorporated. And directly there is triglycerides, fat formation takes place. The large molecules fat formation takes place. And chylomicrons only enters into blood. Without chylomicron formation, Mycellus are not enters into lymph. Sorry, not enters into lymph. So chylomicrons only enters into the region of lymph. And from the lymph vessels, it is directly releases into blood. And in the blood, by the proteins, blood proteins only, the glycerol and the fatty acids are formed and finally reaches to the cells, and cells are utilized as glycerols and fatty acid formation. Understood or not, students? Yes, clear until this?
Clear.
Clear,
Any
sir.
doubts in the fat digestion? Yes, students?
No, sir.
Points need to be remembered. First one, what are mycellus? What are mycellus? Means monoglycerides, fatty acids, and glycerol. So both are all are formed and formed as a mycellus. And where the mycellus are formed? In the region of, yes, students, where the mycellus are formed?
Lumen
In
of
the region of
intestine.
cavity of intestine. So where mycellus converted into chylomicrons?
Epithelium of villi.
Epithelium of villi. So what are chylomicrons?
Sir, Mycellus with lipoprotein coating.
So Mycellus with lipoproteins.
Mycellus coated by the lipoprotein. That is called, those are called chylomicrons. So chylomicrons enters into lymph vessel or blood capillaries.
Lymph vessel.
Lactate. So chylomicrons enters into lymph vessel to blood. So where actual glycerol and fatty acids are divided? In the lymph or blood?
Blood.
In the
Blood.
blood. Okay, students, until this clear. In next session,
Yes, sir.
we will discuss remaining the topics of digestive system disorders. Clear, students? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.